have seen the torch of freedom pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all. So with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this great and wonderful land of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that so much of the world faces in our age of entitlement, permissiveness, moral relativism, and all kinds of, unfortunately, twisted thinking. And as you know from past programs, perhaps, if you're a regular listener or if you're new to the program, it is my contention that our freedoms depend more than anything else on the character of our people. When people of good character are left alone, they're not encumbered by their government, they're not restricted, they're not oppressed in any way. When people with their own internal moral compass, a sound moral compass, a correct moral compass, when such folks are left to their own devices, they tend to innovate, to prosper, to advance, and to help one another, and they tend to build great societies, societies much like we had for some time. And then began the slippery slope down the road to some deterioration. Now, it's not my contention that we have always been a great society and that we have always been people of great character. We have had many different phases in our history. Many phases where we should have rightfully have held our heads in shame for some of the values that we held and some of the things that we did. But there have been also periods of greatness, times when we rose to the level of character that we've always been capable. And in those times, we have prospered greatly. It is my contention that we can do so again. But first, we have to rediscover our character. America's greatness, but by the way, the song that plays at the beginning and the end of each program, the sentiment in that song is the very thing I've been talking about. That's why we play it. It's my contention that great societies are built upon people of good character when they honor our best ideals and when they live them out. That's when we're great as a country. The message of the song you hear is that America's greatness has never resided in its military might or its economic power. It's not where its greatness really lies. There's no question it's one heck of an economic power. It's about to be eclipsed by another power. Still is one heck of an economic power, especially per capita. And it's also the world's remaining superpower. But that's not where its greatness lies. It never has. Its greatness lies in the character of its people. Not just any people, but the people who honor its best ideals and live them out, who have that moral compass, who know that we're all in this together. And when those ideals are cherished and lived out, we are great. We rise to the occasion. And we're being tested. We're being tested like never before. We're being tested from within and tested from without. The world is still recovering from the attack 1 week ago, 1 week and a day ago in Paris, when some individuals with a radical ideology, a twisted ideology, once again committed mass crimes against innocent civilians. And this is a problem that's not going away anytime soon. And it's rooted in the way people think. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. And I hope that if you're of a mind to have an honest and frank discussion about this very topic, that you'll join in the conversation by giving us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'll be happy to take your call. It is amazing to me how many people in my profession of psychology, how many professionals are still not acquainted. They're still not acquainted with the revolution of sorts that occurred within the field several years ago. It's come to be known as the cognitive behavioral revolution. It's the first time we took a serious look at the close interdependence between the way we think, the things we really believe, the attitudes we really hold, not the things we profess, but what we really hold in our hearts. The inextricable connection between that and the way we act. And this has become the heart of the new psychology. We know that people misbehave and they cause themselves all kinds of trouble, and they cause others trouble, primarily because of the way they think about things, the way they look at things, the attitudes they hold. And it wasn't that long ago when the world paid a very steep price for a radical ideology that was rooted in the belief that one race, the master race, was superior to all other races. And a madman and willing followers were of a mind to cleanse their country and neighboring countries, countries where they had influence. They were going to cleanse these countries of inferior folks. At least that's the way they saw them. And ship them off to gas chambers as a final solution. how quickly we forget. How quickly we forget how dangerous ideologies can be. We've had such things in our own country. We've had groups spring up, some under the name of religious belief, some under some other auspices, some even overtly proclaiming racial superiority. But these ideologies almost always have at their core the desire to dominate. It seems part of our evolutionary heritage. From a biological perspective, it's always been about survival of the fittest. And there are, unfortunately, we are the only species that competes against one another. One group trying to dominate the other. And it's been that way for a long time. And if we're gonna survive, we've got to evolve here. We've got to cross a milestone. We have to advance to a point where we no longer see the value in competing with one another for dominance. The battleground now, the battleground before us, is not survival of the fittest physically or even mentally. The battleground now is the battleground of ideas, the way people think. Not just the ways they think, but the core beliefs that they hold. That's the battleground. We have to have an honest discussion with one another, about one another, about the things we hold dear, about the beliefs that we hold. Examine them closely. How constructive are they? How destructive can they be? We have to examine and be willing to challenge those beliefs, because those beliefs are inextricably tied to the ways we act toward one another. Now, I've spent my entire professional career dealing with two groups of people. Those people whose ways of thinking about things was so twisted, so distorted, so self-deceptive, so erroneous, that they'd made the lives of decent people miserable. And I've also worked with those people who were miserable as the result of some disturbed or disordered character in their life. That's what I've spent my professional career doing. And writing about it in my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, and my book, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age, in The Judas Syndrome, my book for the Christian faith community, and on my blog at manipulative-people.com. That's www.manipulative-people.com. And also the blog Psychology, Philosophy, and Real Life at www.counselingresource.com. That's counseling with two L's, resource.com. You can find hundreds of articles out there. Most all of them on this character issue and what we have to do to reclaim it and to instill it in our children, and how we have to go about the process of confronting the disturbed, distorted, and erroneous thinking that poses such a threat to all of us. Whether it's the kind of twisted thinking that affects the mind of a character disturbed individual and causes them to dysfunction so much in their relationships that they make life a living hell for those with whom they're involved, or whether it's these twisted thinkers with a perverted ideology that grants them the entitlement to rape, torture, kill, behead, or whatnot, all those who do not see things the way that they do. And make no mistake, I see we have a caller coming in. I'm going to pick up this call. Hello, and welcome to Character Matters.
Hello?
Hello, welcome to Character Matters.
Yes, Dr. Simon. Okay, I'm on delay here. I had to turn my speaker off.
Yeah, please do.
I've been listening to you. I called about a month ago. My name is Ken. I'm from Florida now, but I listen to you, and character matters absolutely. But when you have 90 million people out of work, and you have a government that is controlling the people, and you have a media that's also controlling the people, how do you expect people to have a decent character, one that is, healthy, for instance? You see what I'm saying? Like these young kids today, I'm 55, but these young kids today, all they see is rap music and commercials, and drugs are good, and this is good, and that's good. How do you expect people to have a decent character? I mean, it's almost like self-defeating.
Yeah, can you hang on for just a second, because I want to address that first question. Well, it's a great question, and okay. I don't know whether you tuned into the program where somebody asked a similar question, and I was talking about the interrelationship between individual character and the environment that we create.
No, not we. The mass media. And they are a selective group of people, and I know that you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay? They're a selective group of people, and they're all working for corporations. Yeah. And they all want one thing, and that's money. And they don't care who's they don't care about people's character, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, well, before I give my opinion about that, what do you think needs to be done about that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I didn't call about what needs to be done. I'm just telling you what I see as 55-year-old growing up. And back in 1960s, the world was great. Everything was great, and then all of a sudden, everything went downhill in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Started in late 60s.
It really
everything
did. Things really did start to change in the late 60s. And
right.
And what do you think was responsible for that?
It's easy to say, it had to do with drugs and marijuana. But we all know that marijuana is a God-grown plant, and we all know that corporations do not want marijuana to be legal because everybody can grow it in their backyard, and corporations will lose money. And it actually works for cancer patients. It actually works for people who may be depressed. It actually works for a lot of different things. But we all know why it's illegal. Now, if we're gonna just lie about it and say, "Oh no, drugs are bad. Drugs are bad." Well, okay, drugs are bad. Okay, when you get to a certain level. But the problem is corporations that are controlling our media and driving all this rap music and everything else, and life is worthless into our young children's brains. You know, life is nothing. Just go out and party, and it doesn't matter anymore. Just do what you want. That's the whole attitude. It was never like that when I was a kid.
You have stumbled on something here that, if you don't mind, I'd like to say a little something about.
Go ahead.
We have two great drives in us. Freud knew this. He didn't really have the necessary insight at the time to really expand upon these two great drives well enough. But we have the life-sustaining drive within us, this drive to survive and to prosper and to procreate. Right. We also have this drive to seek pleasure. And they're supposed to be in balance. In a healthy individual, the pleasure principle serves the life principle. In other words, you know, you taste a piece of food, it's rancid, it tastes bad, you spit it out, and the bad taste in your mouth is supposed to tell you basically, this is not good for you. Don't do it because it's a threat to your survival. Well, it's very interesting. In the course of our evolution, what happened is that this drive in us, this drive to pursue pleasure, became primary, and also because we developed the capacity to, we developed the smarts basically to devise all these technological ways to help us survive and prosper. We can pursue pleasure for its own sake. Even when it is destructive, not only to our very lives. You know, people are eating themselves to death.
Yeah,
they're not doing it because the stuff they're eating tastes bad. It tastes great. The people who put those additives in the food, they know it tastes great, right?
Right, and the commercials are what's making McDonald's on every corner, so these kids could just run down with a couple of bucks in their pocket and eat all day for, you know,
exactly
$3, $4, $5.
So my point is that we have become basically rabid hedonists who pursue pleasure for its own sake. We have.
Right.
We pursue pleasure for its own sake. It is not in the service of life. And even the media, you talk about the media, what the news especially was supposed to be for was to inform us. It's all sensationalistic today.
Exactly.
It's all you hear the term. I hear this. It gets under my skin every time I hear it. I'll turn on this one network, and they're always having breaking news. Well, it's not breaking at all. You know, it's the same breaking news that they had 3 hours ago, but they bill it as breaking news for the people who may have just turned in, and they want to be sensationalistic because they want to draw that audience. Right. Everything is for the sake of the sensationalism itself, and not for the substance.
It's for the sake of corporations to make money.
Yeah.
That's it. It's all about money. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And when people start to get honest, and like I did, I turned off my TV over 10 years ago. I will not watch TV ever again. It's a waste of time, and people are paying $160, $200 for cable. And it's a waste of time. And why are they doing that? Because there's nothing else to do. Well, how about getting on the Internet and look up some research, do some research, and find out the truth of what's really going on in this government?
Yeah.
And you'll see that it's all about money and corporations. Okay. And that's why there's 90 million people out of work right now. 90 million people. It's not 4.5%. It's more like 15%.
That's right.
Of unemployed people.
Well, now
that's the truth.
What do you say about those people who are fudging the numbers, cooking the books, so to speak?
I think they should be kicked out. I think they should be kicked out, eradicated. The media should be eradicated, and we should get a media in there that's telling people the truth, because nobody is getting the truth.
It's not just the media. The media the media depends on these days because there's no investigative journalism anymore. The media,
yes, there is. Yes, there is. Look at the alternative media. As a matter of fact, you're on a radio station that's an alternative media.
Excuse me, I misspoke. What I mean is in the mainstream. Yeah, within the mainstream media, investigative journalism is dead, and they're getting their information from sources. How about the character of those people who are feeding those bad numbers, and knowing that they're doing that?
Well, they're doing it for money. They know the truth. They don't care about the truth. They care about how much you're going to spend today, whether you have money or not. They don't care about you. Yeah. Nobody cares about you in the media.
I've got another call here. I'm going to see what this other person has to say.
Okay.
Welcome to Character Matters. Hang on, Ken.
Okay.
Hello, Dr. Simon.
Hello.
My name is Susan, and I'm calling from Virginia. I'd like to add a little bit of something to what the other man just said. Years ago, the unemployment rate in our country was actually counted as people out of work. However, the Department of Labor reorganized the way they figure unemployment. Now, and here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the way they come up with their unemployment figures is they do a survey of 100,000 households. They use the same households over and over again. They only swap out 1/4 of them each year and bring in fresh people, fresh situations. Now, manipulating the numbers like that leads to what? A low unemployment count, and it's a total falsehood.
Right.
I used to follow this when I could on the Department of Labor's website, and 6 years ago, I calculated that the actual unemployment here in the Commonwealth of Virginia was 39%, based on entirely the numbers.
Yep.
Unbelievable. And you know, the other part of that is that when somebody drops out of the workforce, that affects what the active seeker figure is. So right now we have the lowest labor participation rate that we've had in 50 years.
According to the Department of Labor stats.
Yeah.
And you wonder why character matters.
Those statistics are false, and this is coming from their very own federal government. I've been getting the word out on this for years, that the unemployment figures are total falsehood, and they are.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, basically we're talking about lying here. We're talking about lying by the people who we've entrusted to advocate for us, to protect us, to represent us. And this is why I keep saying it over and over again, and titled the program this, Character Matters. It matters to everything. It affects everything. All of our problems, when you look at them carefully, they all relate to character, even the greed and the money issue that you raised, Ken. This all stems from character.
Exactly. Yep.
Or rather, the lack thereof.
Or the lack thereof. So, I will pose a question to each of you. Where do we begin? Where do we begin, and how do we begin to turn this around?
We kick out the people that are controlling the media. That's who. That's what we do. We kick them out. Get rid of them.
Well, I can only do one radio program. That's
the idea. We got to get real people in there. And as much as I don't like Donald Trump in many ways, Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. I guarantee it.
You think so?
Yes, I guarantee it.
I don't know
because he's real. He's real.
Yeah,
that's why.
You know, he speaks his mind. He's not guarded. But I can't imagine that he isn't going to trip himself up seriously.
No, he's going to be the next president, and you can mark my words. He's going to be. People are so fed up. People are so fed up with this country and the government that they are willing to do anything, even vote in a casino, a casino owner.
Yeah.
Mr. Trump is an expert businessman, and right now he's engaged in the business of selling himself to America.
That's
and
true.
He does a fantastic job of it.
That's true.
Yeah, I can't imagine that he isn't going to trip himself up because Mr. Trump unfortunately has a character issue of his own,
We all do.
He's a pretty,
Megalomania.
he's a pretty grandiose type, and grandiose
Yes.
types tend to chronically overestimate, and they eventually trip themselves up. So
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Maniacal, yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Simon, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'll be listening.
Thanks for calling in.
Okay, bye-bye.
Here. And I'm sorry, caller. I did not when you called in. I didn't hear your first name very well.
Susan.
Hi, Susan.
That's all right.
Susan, do you have an idea about where we start building the kind of character that we need to build, especially in our young folks?
Each one of us has to start with ourselves. You cannot draw water from a dry well. You cannot raise good children unless you are a good person yourself. You cannot leave these children's education up to the school system and expect them to be babysitter, parent, guardian, and teacher. That's not fair. It has to start deep within each one of us. And it all starts with being honest with ourselves and who we are.
Would you
That's where
mind?
you start.
Would you mind if I said a big amen to that?
No, sir, not at all, because I'm a Christian too.
Yeah. Well, I hear exactly what you're saying, and I agree with you 100%. You know, we convert hearts by having a converted heart of our own. That's how we convert hearts. Yeah.
Well, and I know this is going to draw some flack, but I do have to bring this up. Our churches have failed. They have become nothing more than social acceptance ritual pushers. It's all about showing up 2 or 3 times a week, waving your $20 bill in the air so everybody can see before you put it in the plate. You get dunked in the tub, you get your name on the roll, and you're a good, God-fearing Christian. You sit there on Sunday with a blank look on your face, not hearing a thing, yet you shake the preacher's hand after his sermon and tell him what a good sermon it was, and then you go out and you continue to live your life with no change. Change has got to start within each and every one of us.
Can I say an almost double amen to that? Because I hear exactly what you're saying about so many. I don't think that's true of all individual congregations, but I think what you're getting at is what the dominant basically model has become for church going. I see some churches, for example, that are no more than social clubs.
Well, and when I moved to Wisconsin years ago, I was at that time a Southern Missionary Baptist. I looked for a Baptist church, and I went to several. The only problem is I didn't drive a nice enough car, and I didn't wear designer clothes. One of the biggest churches that I went to with my family, I filled out a visitor's card and gave it to the deacon. Well, while we were on our way into the sanctuary, I saw the deacon crumple that card up in his hand and drop it in the wastebasket. We weren't rich enough to belong to that church.
My goodness. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, when I see these egregious examples, some of these mega churches that are more like show places, they're more like theater, where what's going on is more of a performance, and people feel good and uplifted for a minute, and then they go out and do horrible things to each other and horrible things to their neighbor.
Well, you brought up a good point right there, because so many times, and I've been seeing this in all my years. I was a missionary Baptist for 23 years. I was Catholic for 4. I was Seventh-day Adventist for 12. I've seen this in all these different churches. Unless and until the leadership of the church does exactly what the Bible says to do and teaches that to their congregation, all they will do is entertain them. I've seen people come out of a church and they were high as a kite on their own endorphins. Mm-hmm. I knew one lady, if she didn't come out of her church walking on air, she was convinced that God was mad at her, and she would go home and punish herself because she didn't get her emotional fix.
Yeah. You know, I don't really think I'm going to politely disagree with one thing, and not really disagree because I agree with you 100%, really. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit. I really don't think the solution's going to come with a change in the churches or their structure or their hierarchy. I think the change is going to come at the grassroots level with people with people who have really embraced the message in their hearts
Yes.
and who realize that it's on us to carry that message and that it's on us to do so even in the absence of an institution or an edifice or some grand set of rules and rituals. That isn't what we need.
What we need is pure and simple truth.
That's right. And we need to care
And-
for each other.
Well, and the thing about it is these social acceptance rituals are so firmly in place. I only know of several, I think maybe 4 other people like myself. We don't really claim any religious affiliation because our first obedience is to God.
Yeah.
Now, we come from all different walks of life. We come from all different denominations. But the one thing that we have in common is that we recognize that dogma and doctrine, and actually religion itself, is a man-made creation that can and often does insulate people from God rather than lead them to God.
Yes.
They're led into the social acceptance rituals, and they think that's all there is.
Mm-hmm.
They're so far from the actual truth that God is real.
What do you make?
I'm gonna-
What do you make? What do you make, Susan, of these radical ideologies that, in the name of all that is holy, are doing such unspeakable evil?
It's a blasphemy.
Yeah, I'm going to take another call, but would you hang on?
Sure.
Hello, and welcome to Character Matters.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
welcome to Character Matters.
Did I interrupt the last call?
No, I kept Susan on the line, and I'm hoping that you'll join the conversation.
Okay. I agree with you. I don't think it is religious-based. I don't think any of it has anything to do with religion. I don't think character comes from religion anymore at all. It doesn't have anything to do with Christianity or any other religion.
What do
It
you?
comes from how we're raised and what our society, like the guy said, our media and everything else.
How do you explain those folks? How do you explain those folks who have actually had, and I've seen this firsthand, who have actually had the best kind of upbringing and have had every opportunity in life, have had a good education, have had all the groundwork laid, and still have attitudes of entitlement, who still have grandiose self-appraisal, and who still do things that needlessly use and abuse and manipulate others. How do you explain that?
Honestly, I don't know, because I wonder whether or not I'm in the middle. I have phoned in before. I'm in the middle of a crazy divorce with I've been told a psychopath, definitely a narcissist. And so that's my fear. Like, I know what I've taught my children, and I was the primary caregiver.
Yeah.
But you know, you see these things, and you like I have one child in particular that I see a lack of character with me. You know, whether or not that's going to carry on in her life, I don't know. But as an 18-year-old, her behaviors are quite questionable at times. Now, with her friends and the people on the outside, you know, there's no reason for anything to be showing a lack of character, really, because her life right now is all about fun and gain, right?
You know, I got into the mental health field believing, as you do, that our environment shapes us. As a matter of fact, there's a school in psychology that claims that as the axiom, as the number one axiom, that it's all about the environment, that we're basically just products of our environment. But after doing this work, and after case study after case study after case study, literally in the tens of thousands, after doing this for about 30 years or so, I came to realize that is just about poo-poo.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I believe that my husband has he has mental problems. Like I mean, you wouldn't know just meeting him and being around him, but if you spend any length of time with him, you start to question how he thinks.
Yeah. And
or where he sits in the world.
Yeah. The other thing you mentioned about the belief systems, our religious belief systems, these things emerged, we created them, and they emerged for a reason. We have kind of an intuitive notion that we have all these instincts within us and that we have the capacity to rise to a higher level of functioning. And we've devised all of these basically schemes to help us get us there. But sometimes we take them all so seriously. We take them too seriously. We don't really take an honest, sincere, deeper look at what we're all really after and what we're all really about. And until we have that honest conversation, I've said this many times and I'll say it again, until we get honest with ourselves, about ourselves, and with each other, about each other, we don't have a prayer. We have to get way beyond all of the metaphors that we've created that divide us. And we have to take a deep, honest look at ourselves and who we are.
But do you think it's about looking at yourself? So, like I know that I'm a good person. And people tell me all the time. They thank me, and they tell me all the time that they don't get what I've been receiving because they know who I am. But most people I know spend most of their time saying, "I don't want to know about that guy because all I'm worried about is me. All I'm worried about is me. All I'm worried about is me because I don't want to be affected by that guy."
You're right.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, because the majority of people find problems like yours and mine, they find them distasteful. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. They don't want to admit that there is a problem with that person. They want you to just quiet and go away. So
but they don't go away.
It's
I know that.
You would have
but
to agree.
Friends.
You'd have to agree, Susan. It's much easier just to close one's eyes and ears.
Sure. Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Until it's affecting them.
Yeah. Character.
Unless and until it does, yes.
Yeah. Character, if it's anything, is hard work.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I spent 8 years in talk therapy, and
I don't know
it as a
character
blessing.
is hard work.
It is.
Like Dr. Simon,
very hard work.
It is not only hard work, but you can't judge from yourself because everybody comes to the table with different traits and different predispositions. For some people, it's incredibly hard work because some people come with deficits that are impossible for others to imagine. For example, some people come to the table with severe empathy deficits. Their brains aren't wired right.
Yes.
They can't feel for other.
Yeah, but then that's a chemical. That's a
well,
biological thing.
And for them to develop any of the kind of character that we think is healthy is an incredible challenge. It's an incredible.
I don't even believe they can.
Well, frankly, I know how most people feel about that. After years of experience, I've learned otherwise too. I've learned that you can actually nurture such things. It takes
what percentage of people?
It takes a lot of work, and you got to start really early, and you got to pick up on the signs very early on that there's something wrong. But it can be done. It's just a real challenge. And this is what I'm talking about when I say we've got to have an honest conversation and we've got to get to know who we really are. Our metaphors have not served us very well, either our psychological metaphors, our humanistic metaphors, our religious metaphors. None of these metaphors have served us all that well. They have only served to the... I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They primarily lately served to divide us.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, Dr. Simon, here's the thing about it. it does boil down to each person's individual choice of how they choose to be.
Yeah.
The other thing that it boils down to is total honesty. You know, unless you can have, there's no way that you can have a real relationship with God unless you really, really know who you are. You know, you can put forth all of these.
I better get off.
Facades, you know, facades. Help me out here. Facades. And you can pretend to be someone you're not. But that doesn't make you change. All that does is you're manipulating people to believe you're actually good when you're not.
Yeah, these days we call that impression management. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say an amen to that too, Susan.
Okay, I'm going to actually leave the call because I have too much going on around me. But
Well, thanks for calling in. I
I'll
appreciate
continue to listen. Okay,
I appreciate your
you.
comments. Yes, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well,
Dr. Simon, I would like to run something by you on a more personal note.
sure.
I've been married for 23 years now, and my husband's a real piece of work. I can't go into, it would take hours to chat through this, but I'll give you one good indication of who and what he is. His mother worshipped the ground he walked on. He's a retired deputy sheriff, and he sang gospel music for over 30 years. She said she didn't need to go to church on Sunday morning. All she had to do was put in one of his CDs, and she felt she'd gone to church. However, in 1997, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. My father-in-law had died 2 weeks earlier, so my mother-in-law came to live with us. The first thing my husband did was deny that there was anything wrong with her. And once her oncologist absolutely shoved the truth in his face, he withdrew. Totally. He'd leave the house early in the morning. He'd come home late at night. He'd go straight to the office or the bedroom. He would not look at his mother. He would not speak to his mother. He would not touch his mother. And I was absolutely flabbergasted. It doesn't cover it. And I asked him, I said, "This is your mother. What are you doing?" He said, "I can't stand to look at her because I know she's dying."
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that last part you said, Susan. He couldn't stand to look at her because what?
She was dying.
Oh, yeah.
And he abandoned his grandparents. That's one of the major things right there. I do believe that I am married to a sociopath who has absolutely no empathy for anyone or anything else.
You might not have to go that far. But I will tell you, I do have some articles you might enjoy reading on the internet, both on the counseling resource blog and on my own personal blog at manipulative-people.com. One key character variable, and we know this now even from research, one really key variable that really distinguishes a healthy character from an impaired or narcissistic character is the will to bear discomfort. And it sounds like your husband is basically not willing to bear the discomfort that comes along with this ordeal that he would have to face and be a part of and do his part to help ease the pain. It's basically the kind of WORK that some characters think of as a four-letter word.
Well, and it's so funny you should say that because I tell people that my husband has allergies, and they say, "What?" I said, "Work."
I have 4 articles on that. I think you'll find, the one on Counseling Resource says exactly that. The WORK is a 4-letter word to these characters. I think you might enjoy that. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is this total inability to take responsibility for anything that he does. If it even has a slight negative connotation, it's always someone else's fault, always. And, that's just getting worse as he gets older.
Yeah. Do you confront him on these things?
I used to, but all it did was make it harder on me.
Yeah.
So I have learned to pick my battles.
Yes, yeah.
And it's very hard as a Christian being married to a man pretending to be a Christian. It's very hard.
Well, one of the things about, and I'm going to speak personally here. One of the things about the Christian faith, as it is predominantly practiced in Western culture, is it's so easy to say the words. Talk, as you know, is cheap. Living out the commands that we as Christians are given is hard work. It's not easy. It goes against our baser nature, which is why it requires such faith. But talk is cheap. It's so easy to say the words. I mean, how easy is it to just move your lips and say I'm a believer? That takes no effort whatsoever. But to live out the faith, to live the life of love, to live the life of decency, of character, that's hard work.
That's very hard work. I mean, I pray constantly because I find myself making judgments or reacting in a very human way to things, and I have to constantly pray for forgiveness because I don't want to be this way.
Yeah.
That's my personal commitment to God.
Yeah.
And that's what it all boils down to. Mm-hmm. There will be no real change unless the change comes from within, and the first thing that we have to change is to realize that God is actually real.
Yeah.
And so many of our churches, and I've been in quite a few of them,
mm-hmm.
they do not teach the reality of God. And unless you have a real one-on-one relationship with God, you're just a paper Christian. It's head profession. It's head profession, not heart possession.
Yeah. I appreciate your comments, Susan. I'm going to be starting the wrap-up of the program soon, but I wanted to ask you, what's your weather like there in Virginia?
It's very cold here. The low tonight is 21.
Yeah.
But the skies are clear, and Sunday the skies are really clear, and that's where our temperature
that's what I was going to ask you, because a lot of the country didn't get spared a bunch of snow, so I was just wondering.
Well, we haven't had any yet so far.
Well,
but that can change. Wait 5 minutes.
Well, stay warm and have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday.
And I wanted to thank you, Dr. Simon. Your book, Wolf in Sheep's Clothing.
Yes, ma'am.
I am recommending that, and as I can afford it, I'm giving away copies of that to as many people as I think need it as is possible. I really appreciate the work that you've done, your straightforward manner of putting these things in language that people like me can clearly understand.
Thank you so much. I've been blessed by that book more times than I care to count. We're now in 18 foreign languages, and it was first conceived in 1995. So we're talking 20 years in print, which is an unheard of thing for a bestseller. And I couldn't be more edified, and it's all because of people like you who find what it has to say that resonates and recommend it to other people. And it's enabled me to live in my retirement and to do these things, to reach out to people. I couldn't be more edified, and I thank you very much. I really appreciate your comments.
You're more than welcome, and thank you so much for this conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, a few great calls today. I really appreciate them very much. And I also want to say a big thank you to my blog commentators who have been really super through a rash of trolls and spam coming onto the blog in the last couple of weeks, making life a little difficult from time to time, and shaking up the otherwise stellar character of the blog. So I really want to thank the commentators who are such a big part of why the blog is such a success. And if you haven't had a chance to visit the blog, I urge you to do so. Both blogs, as a matter of fact, but my own personal blog at manipulative-people.com and the other blog at counselingwith2lsresource.com. And also to avail yourself of my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, and Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age. Both of these are readily available from Amazon. They'll make a great Christmas gift for somebody, and also my first book for the Christian faith community, The Judas Syndrome, about how our lack of faith is really how we betray, just as Judas did his lack of faith. He did it with a kiss, but we betray our own lack of faith in the master we proclaim to serve, in the way that we act sometimes. And it's my message for the community. This faith of ours is not about a profession of the lips. It's not about the easy saying of magic words. It's about deeds that match actions. It's about a conversion of the heart. And the callers today had it absolutely right. This is how the revolution will have to start. It has to start with each and every one of us. That's our first mission. Our first character challenge is our own. That's where we have power, and that's where we have the greatest choice. We have the power within us to be honest with ourselves, about ourselves, and to examine our core beliefs, to examine the way that we see the world, how we really see the world, how we really see our place in it, what we really want this world to look like, and then rolling up our sleeves and getting busy and helping to be a part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem. I have great faith that the work that was begun almost 2,000 years ago is by no means over. I think a new beginning is just becoming, because it has to. And does that mean that it won't get very, very tough? No, I don't think so. I think we face a challenge like we've never faced before. We are going to see more of these really destructive, deadly ideologies. I've written about this. I have several blog articles about this. We're going to see more of this. We're going to see many more folks who feel disenfranchised, wanting to dominate the rest of us. We're going to see more and more of this. There's going to be a lot of hardship, and there's probably going to be some bloodshed. But the dream is not dead. A better world is within our grasp. We have to build it, each and every one of us. Our government is not going to do it for us. Our elected representatives can't do it. We can't entrust this mission to anyone else. It's too sacred. It's ours to embrace. We have to save the world. It starts with you and I. It's our own individual calling to individual holiness. That's really what character is all about. There are 13 or 14 ways to say the same thing. Maybe 100, maybe umpteen. But it all starts with us. So with that in mind, I thank you for tuning in once again to Character Matters. I invite you to tune in again next week at the same time for another edition of Character Matters. And I want to wish each and every one of you a very, very blessed Thanksgiving holiday. We have a lot to be grateful for. Let us count our blessings. And I will be back with you next week, hopefully at this same time, for another edition of Character Matters. I'm Dr. George Simon. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you all again next week. Take care.